Turn it up, Mr. Selector. Freedom now. I'll take my freedom now. Turn it up. Freedom now. Freedom now. I want my freedom now. No chains on my mentality. Sound mind and body, I go where I want to be. Life is filled with endless possibilities of colorful dreams and mixed up realities. When I travel into the farthest reaches of my mind, there is where peace, comfort, and freedom I find. You can lock up my body, chain my hands and my feet, strip me of my garments, leave me naked in the streets, but my mind, I would find it hard for you to bind. My thoughts are divine in its ability to combine words so colorful, vibrant, and sublime. It gives way to God's ultimate shine. With everlasting blessings from my feet to my head forever held high. In my soul, my freedom you cannot mask, sell, or buy. Freedom now. Freedom now. Say it with me, y'all. Freedom now. One more time, y'all. Freedom now. I'll take my freedom now. Freedom now. Freedom now. I want my freedom now. In my subconscious mind, butterflies and bees are my friends. But in reality, most humans are my enemies. Not because I don't like them, but because they don't like me. They see my colors as a threat to their very existence. But all I want is our freedom now, in this and every waking hour. Equal rights to existence dance in the same place of equal justice, freedom, and power. It's been denied from us physically for years. Jailed and locked up, our families left in tears. Mourning the loss for so many wasted years. Not knowing who we are stops us from hearing our ancestors' prayers. So listen to the sound of the night. In the dark still of the air, you can hear our ancestors' voices rise up like the ocean waves that brought our ancestors here. Let us fight to hear the songs of freedom, now triumphant, loud and clear. Say it with me, y'all. Freedom now. I want my freedom now. One more time, y'all. Freedom now. I'll take my freedom now. Freedom now. Say it with me, y'all. Freedom now. Give it up, give it up. I want my freedom now. My body you can shackle, my clothes you can tear, but my freedom now in my mind sustains the heart that I bear. I've lived through painful thoughts, but I see my future bright ahead of me. God is the driver. We're doing 0 to 60 in my life's new SUV. The road is open. The wind is in my hair. Freedom now is ringing clearly in my ears. Moving forward without a care. God's in the driver's seat, so you know I'll be getting there. Our journey has been a long and hard one for sure. It's been a while with many closed doors, but I haven't given up the fight for what I want yet. My goal is to make God proud of me before my final breath. And as I leave my footprints behind, let it be known I fought and spoke out for our freedoms every time. Once again, y'all, freedom now. Give it up, give it up, give it up. Freedom now. Yeah, yeah, I want my freedom now. Give it up, give it up, give it up. Freedom now. Ha, ha, give me my freedom now. Yeah, give me my freedom now. I want my freedom now. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week. I want it today. I want my freedom now, today. All right, bless up, you guys. Remembering the 400. I am Dionne, the bird of paradise.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Tianna Allen, and I have the honor and the privilege of being able to sing for the flag raising of Remember the 400. So today I'll be singing Rise Up by Andra Day. You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find that fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out and move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. We'll take it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other. We will rise, we will rise, whoa. Together we will rise, together we will rise, and I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again, oh, and I'll rise up, high like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. Thank you.
Good morning, family, friends, supporters, esteemed dignitaries, and my fellow Canadians. I would like to thank Tianna Allen for blessing us with her beautiful voice with the song Rise Up, and Dionne Samuels for her powerful spoken word, Freedom Now. It was an excellent way to begin the ceremony. Today, August 23rd, as declared by the United Nations, is proclaimed as the International Day for the Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition. Many ceremonies and festivities around the world will happen today to acknowledge the tragedies of those lives of enslaved peoples who suffered and endured the transatlantic slave routes, commencing off the coast of Western Africa and carried across the globe, mainly to Europe, the Americas, and the Caribbean. As we are doing our part as Canadians to honor and remember the many sacrifices of individuals like Viola Desmond, Joshua Glover, Marie Joseph Angelique, and many more whose stories are untold and simply not taught in our school system. We also honor those lives who fought against injustice, like the abolitionist First Lieutenant Governor of Upper Canada, John Graves Simcoe. Remember the 400's goal is to unite those descendants of enslaved people and our allies globally in the month of August as our Freedom Month. We work tirelessly to heal the racial divide and learn or uncover more about our past atrocities and contributions to society made as a whole, so that we can now teach future generations to come. This has been the mission of the founder, Shadrock Porter, for many years, and I am, as president of Remember the 400, happy to continue in his legacy. I would especially like to thank the efforts of Mayor Tory for proclaiming, yes, absolutely, the month of August in 2019 as Emancipation Month, and continuing to do so thereafter. As descendants of enslaved people, 2019 marked a significant time in our history. Although 400 years later, the shackles of mental slavery and its effects still plague our society today despite our physical freedom. This year, after the removal of the COVID-19 restrictions, many of us, like myself, had the opportunity to learn about those enslaved people history at various Toronto museums and festival events throughout the Greater Toronto area. That is a nod even to Cheryl Blackman. Thank you. It is a beautiful feeling. As a Canadian, I'm incredibly proud of the House of Commons for coming together in March of 2021 to establish and recognize August 1st as Emancipation Day. For me and many others, it is an integral part of our history, of how our ancestors came to be free and to identify individuals such as William Wilberforce, who dedicated most of his life to abolishing slavery. I want to thank Senator Majid Jowhari and his colleagues for relighting that torch so that August 1st is acknowledged throughout all of our country, Canada. As we raise the flag today, I will stand tall as a proud Canadian in truth, honor, remembrance, equity, and hope that freedom will continue to reign in our beautiful home of Canada. May this ceremony be emulated throughout our provinces, cities, and towns every year in respecting those lives who endured and suffered for our freedom today. Thank you. I would like to ask that you please give a round of applause for the founder of Remember the 400, Shadrock Porter, as he approaches the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to embrace your presence. You're beautiful people. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, family, and to my mayor and political colleagues and supporters of this great city of Toronto, greetings to his most holy name. May the God of our fathers watch over us on this very important day. Some may look at us today, raising this piece, this flag today as a group of unimportant people just raising a piece of design cloth. That means nothing to the world and the present day situation in which we find ourselves in. But if you look closely and carefully at this piece of design cloth, You will notice it is covered with purple and the words written in red, white, and blue. The colors of the forgotten people, that there is a black image representing them and a broken chain, the sign of their freedom. This piece of design cloth, in which we can now call our symbol of recognition, that now represents us as a nation within a nation. This flag is a symbol of our humble beginning, a symbol of our determination to survive, and we do hope that the mistakes that we have made in the past and the horrible things that has happened to our ancestors during slavery will never be repeated. A plight that started not only here in the so-called New World, but started in Africa. This flag says it will not be repeated. This flag being raised here today in an area of global and significant power will someday be recognized as a significant part of that power, and the entire world will recognize its ownership, and we will be forever proud of the contribution that we as a people have made to create such power. We are slowly, very slowly, regaining our consciousness. We are regaining our consciousness of self. We have sacrificed and lost our own culture, our dignity, and most importantly, we have lost our own religion and our God. All of them have been taken away by those who had the power over us. For 400 years, we have lived under the umbrella of others. We have been kept away from our own original way of life, whatever that was. But thank our God, we survived. Because some of us survive, we will show the world that we are not an ungrateful set of people. We will love to take this opportunity to thank those who some had forgotten because of the color of their skin. The American revolutionary, Mr. John Brown, who gave his life and sacrificed his own family that we may live. Mr. John Simcoe, I made a play about John Simcoe. I wrote it once, and it was a very, very successful piece of dramatic presentation. The Englishman, Mr. William Wilberforce, who stood in the English Parliament and became our voice. And all of the Quakers who sacrificed their lives so that we can have our lives, even though they all had different skin color than us. It made no difference. It made no difference at all to them. Today, the one we now enjoy is our freedom month as we stay here to enjoy this time years ago when slaves arrived in Virginia. We celebrate that. There is a question on everyone's lips now, and that is, what's next? Well, let me tell you, we should not be sitting on our backs and our sides waiting for handouts. We should not be on our toes. We should now be on our toes prepared for tomorrow and how we can be in charge of our own future. We should not live in the past, but let the past be a stepping stone and a ladder for our future to succeed. There should be that growing need for us as a people to come together like other nations rather than fighting among ourselves for the crumbs left by others. Everyone today seems to be talking about reparation, but in order to receive it in any form, we have to be together. It will not be in any way handed out to individuals. So without that one people, one nation practice, like others have done, stop talking about it. Without togetherness, my dear friends, without togetherness, we are going to remain in our present situation forever. Today, we are remembering the past and the terrible things that was done to our fathers and our mothers, even to some of us today. Therefore, we should let the experience of slavery propel us to be positive, a very positive example to our children. Let them not wander and wander like pigs in the mud of life. Let them have a fresh start intellectually, spiritually, and of our God's sake, mentally. We have raised a flag, or about to, in most of the countries that had something to do with our enslavement, to remind us that it was in this month of August when we were given freedom on paper and by another nation of people. Some had sacrificed their lives that we can be free from the physical chains. But today in this month, when the documentation of that freedom was written in ink, some of us are still worried that the ink had dried, and they are still waiting in the chamber of darkness, looking for themselves. But let me tell you why some of us have found ourselves. It is because we did not succumb. Why? Because we did not kneel when it was time for us to stand. Neither did we stand when there was need for us to kneel. We did not cry when there was need for us to laugh. Neither did we laugh when there was need for us to cry. We did not beg when there was time for us to give. This is the motto of our survival. It was in the mighty hand of the God of our fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Since when did the 400 years meant so much to so many, politically, spiritually, and otherwise? Why not 100? Or maybe 200? But the words were not allowed to fall to the ground. Now they know how to calculate from 1619 to 2019 and get to this most important number of 400 and the most important month of August. For this season, we are not a typical so-called bunch of idiots like some would like to label us. We are the raw materials of this world. We develop countries. We are great inventors without the title of same. We are the forgotten but brave fighters in 2 world wars, engraved in our community under the leadership of others that knows nothing really about our true way of life, whatever and wherever you may find us. Remember the 400. It is set up and organized as a transparent body like any world institution. We have a council of men and women that covers every area as any functioning government body. We have leaders not only Toronto, Canada area, but in the United Kingdom and the United States. We are now having conversations with members of the Caribbean and South American governments that they should get on this most important train of freedom for all of our people, wherever they might reside, before it is too late and they are left behind. All this is done exposing the interior part of our culture. Everything we do is supposed to be cultural. We must be prepared to climb one step at a time, even though finance will be like a tonic that we will need to consume in helping us to climb. Nevertheless, all of us need to try harder. We must learn to look at the bigger picture, the power and the glory at the top of that mountain. We as a forgotten people should determine to set the bar so high, especially and particularly the RT400, so that the light of our own personal dreams and whatever positive and powerful thoughts you as a people may have of and shine through. As we celebrate this month, this Freedom Month, in the memory of our freedom, in the memory of our fathers and our mothers, in the memory of all those who were thrown overboard, in the memory of all those who made it to the shores, in the memory of all those who made their marks, and even to all those who failed and died trying. Let the month of August continue to be our Freedom Month. With all this that I've said, I would like to leave you with your own chain of positive thoughts that should never be broken. May peace reign upon us and our families. May the Lord God of our fathers continue to shower his blessings upon all of us. And this peace I leave with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Shadrock Porter. Please keep the applause going, and please welcome our Mayor, John Tory.
Well, good morning. Normally, I'm better organized at having the program set up in such a way that I don't follow a talk like that. But, you know, it's inspiring that you founded this organization, but your words are inspiring as well, because to found it is one thing, but to carry on with the kind of determination that you have and to do it in such an eloquent way is an inspiration certainly to me in the work that I have to do, and I'll talk a little bit about that today, but it's inspiring for us all because we have to keep those words in mind all the time. And I'm also very pleased to be here with all of you, of course, but also with my friend Majid Jowhari, who, as was said, has had so much to do as a member of Parliament with the recognition of this important month and the important day that has just passed this year, Emancipation Day, because, you know, I'm often asked, because I go to a lot of things as Majid does as well, and for things like Black History Month or Asian Heritage Month and all, why do we have these things? And we have them for two reasons, I think, and they're both fundamentally important to our success as a pluralistic, accepting, embracing, inclusive society here that we're trying to build. The first is, it is incredibly important that we understand the history of where we've been and how people's experience in their lives and the experience of their ancestors shape who they are and who we are. And that education that happens during those months and during Emancipation Month for that matter is hugely important. But secondly, if we don't understand each other, celebrate each other, understand our differences, understand our different histories, we are bound not to be successful at making this the kind of inclusive city and country that we're, I think, very much trying to build. That's what distinguishes us when we have people around the world who want to come here. I don't think it's the weather. Believe you me, we're happy to be here again doing these flag raisings in person. I did them even during the pandemic, and when I was out here alone in the winter by myself with huge snowpiles behind me and a cold wind blowing, it was still important to recognize and respect the people we were honoring on those days. But it's better to do it here with people, and it's better to do these things because we come to understand each other just a little bit better. And when we're trying to be the most inclusive city in the world, one that people want to come to from around the world, it is incredibly important that we understand and celebrate each other, and that we prove what we often say in Canada, which we believe, and that is that differences make us stronger, not weaker. And so I also want to congratulate you and thank you, Doreen, for the work that you do on a continuing basis to make the Remember the 400 movement strong and abiding. And of course, I know it's a movement that exists not just here in Canada and in Toronto, but around the world. And I think that's very important as well. So we're gathered to commemorate and to honor the enslaved peoples of the transatlantic slave trade. And, you know, I know a lot of the time the reference was made even today to forgotten people. And I think the fact we're here indicates that they're not forgotten, and they can't be forgotten, and they shouldn't be forgotten, and they mustn't be forgotten. And we have to look at the journey that didn't end, but the journey took an important step forward when freedom and justice those first initial steps were taken all those years ago. And this, of course, was something that led to the abolition of slavery and freed more than 800,000 people of African descent across the British Empire, probably more. But while it abolished slavery per se, work that remains to be done, work always did remain to be done from that day forward. I don't think anybody ever pretended otherwise. Black residents in Toronto, and this is the first thing that I had to do as the mayor, as the elected leader of the city, was to publicly acknowledge something that we know to be true, but when you say it publicly as the elected leader of the city, which is that black residents here in the city of Toronto and elsewhere continue to experience the after effects and the legacy of slavery, and we have to recognize that. And one of the things that's happened, it probably has to you as well, Majid, in my time in public life, is I've come to understand better and better that we're all impacted by our own respective histories. And my history doesn't include anything going back generations where anybody was enslaved in my family's life. And had it been included in my history, it would have affected me, but the people where it was a factor in the lives of their families and their ancestors going back, you know, just imagine for a minute how it would impact on your own history and what might have turned out in your own life, given what I've come to understand better, which is the intergenerational impact of these things that happened in the past. You can't change history, but you can understand its impacts and you can learn from it and learn what we have to do so that nobody ever experiences again the disrespect that went with enslavement. The trauma of what happened then can still be felt now, and I recognize that, and I think we all have to recognize that, and that is too what these days are all about. Celebrating what happened that was good, but also remembering the lasting effects that what went before had on people. And of course, this is not limited to other parts of the world. We're quite often inclined to think as Canadians or even as Torontonians that this happened somewhere else. It happened here too. And I think that's something we don't often enough remind ourselves about. You know, reference was made by Doreen about the fact that a lot of things aren't taught in school. I was a Canadian history student. We spent very little time in those days, it was a while ago now, talking about Indigenous people and what happened to them, and we spent even less time talking about the slave trade and how there were many people living in this city at that time and today who were experiencing the intergenerational traumatic impacts of the fact that an entire race of people was enslaved. And so it is an important day for us to be here today to raise the flag, and I think by raising the flag we're not just doing something symbolic, but we're committing ourselves to learn more, to educate others, to raise awareness, and to acknowledge and act on the existence of anti-black racism in our society here, and by society I mean Toronto or Canada, doesn't pick your pick. It's a time when we have to firm up our resolve to act. And the raising of the flag and standing here saying these things for me is a measure of commitment. And that commitment I take very seriously, and I'm committed to making sure that the voices are heard and the stories are told so that we will be galvanized into additional action. We have, I'm proud to say, done much more than proclaim Emancipation Month or raise a flag. We've created North America's first anti-black racism unit inside the city government. It's working away year after year, 4 years on now, to rebuild trust, to support Toronto's black residents, to support public servants who work inside this building who are black. And I've listened to them, something we call the Black Staff Network, and their stories of how, yes, some of them have done very well, but they will tell you they did well, sometimes in spite of the way the system was set up and in spite of some of their experiences. And we're learning from what they tell us to try and remedy those things. This is a time to challenge the norms and to commit not just to doing something, but to doing much, much better, to doing what's best, and to do what's right, to learn from our history, and that's why I'm here today. So in conclusion, I would just encourage people to read up on emancipation, to read up on slavery, to read up on what it took to get slavery abolished and what it took to bring about emancipation all those years ago. And I think that is what we should do in a city that is trying to be the most inclusive city in the world. And we're doing not too badly, better than many, but not yet good enough. And I think if we work together where we decide for ourselves that every single citizen without exception in the city is going to feel included, is going to feel a sense of belonging, is going to feel respected, is going to feel embraced, then we will have built the kind of city that I think we really want to build. We have to make sure that fairness and justice and equality are a reality for all Torontonians, and we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We've got work to do. But that is why today is important. That is why I'm so honored to be with you and to thank you for the work that you do as part of the Remember the 400. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor John Tory. We will now have Member of Parliament Majid Jowhari. Please put your hands together.
Thank you, Doreen, and good morning, everyone. As said, my name is Majid Jowhari. I'm the Member of Parliament for Richmond Hill. And it is an honor and privilege to be here with you today. I'd like to start and begin by acknowledging my presence on the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people, and to honor all of the Indigenous people with a connection to this land. Please also allow me to acknowledge the presence of all my colleagues from all levels of government. Mayor Tory, thank you for your opening remark and your advocacy that started and flourished in 2019. My sincere appreciation goes to the members of the 400 Foundation, specifically the founder, Mr. Shadrock Porter, the president, Ms. Doreen Simpson, vice president, Mr. Tyrone Swaray, and all the dedicated staff and members for arranging such a fantastic event. Thank you for your significant initiative that you have been advocating for a long time. Today, we gather here in recognition of 400 years of history, as so many has talked about, and also remembering the Freedom Month and the Emancipation Month. Specifically the Emancipation Day, which we commemorate each year, as you all know, on August 1st. This is the time that we give consideration both to Canada's role in slavery and the impact of freedom then and now, as well as the continued barriers and discrimination that still have to be challenged. Officially designated 2 years ago, the process started about 2 years ago in February of 2020, and I still very clearly remember in the midst of the COVID pandemic on March of 2021, the House unanimously passed a motion to recognize August 1st as the Emancipation Day. That was a moment of pride for me because it also happened to coincide with the anniversary of 42 years of me coming to Canada as an international student. I don't know whether that was destination or not. I came to Canada on March 3rd, 1979 as an international student, coming here and seeking to build a better future. I remember when I, for the first time, shortly after I arrived, I explored downtown Toronto, and I came and I saw this beautiful building, and I was reminiscing that about 15 minutes ago. And I didn't know what a land this is. This is a land that provides opportunity for everyone, and I embraced it. And thanks for the contribution, dedication, advocacy of many groups and many before us that I had that opportunity. So every chance that I get, I advocate. I advocate because it was indeed because of those who were before us, whether it was fought in World War I, World War II, or fighting for justice and inclusivity and diversity, that I have the privilege and the honor of standing in front of you. So I took up the torch, and we fought for the emancipation, the motion M36, back in February of 2020. The government was a minority government, and my heart was beating. Am I going to make it through the first reading? Well, we made it through the first reading in October. Then I was wondering, am I going to make it through the second reading before the election was called? And we made it through the second reading, and usually about a week after the second reading is completed. Through that time, the support that came from all community members, all the organizations, all my colleagues from across the aisle, this was one motion that I could say that had the unanimous support of all the members of Parliament. The seconder of this motion was an opposition member that we worked very closely with. And so I want to acknowledge all of those. And this watershed moment in our country's history paved the way for freeing over 800,000 enslaved Africans and their descendants in Canada and in North America. Since then, many of the African descents and their allies commemorate August 1st as Emancipation Day, an important milestone on the quest for freedom, justice, and equality. Today, Black Canadians continue to face prejudice, discrimination, and long-lasting disparities in access to education, housing, employment that limits their full and equal participation in the society. As systematic racism continues to affect the life of Black Canadians, I strongly believe the acknowledgement of our history is essential to moving forward and addressing systematic racism in Canada. I think the Mayor was quite articulate on highlighting that point. In my opinion, there are 3 stages in realizing a vision: awareness, engagement, and mobilization. Through the advocacy of many community leaders over at least the last 100 years in Canada and last 400 years, the passage of this motion and commemorative occasions such as today, we have generated the awareness that allows us to move to the next phase of realizing our true inclusive vision in Canada. Commemoration of the Emancipation Day and flag raising today on the 23rd of August, engaging the broader community and developing a path forward is part of the engagement phase that strengthens our bond. Together, let us commit ourselves to strengthening and broadening our engagement throughout our beautiful nation, so we position ourselves well to mobilize the realization of the path forward to achieving greater sense of freedom and justice for all. This was the true vision behind putting forward, as I said, my private member motion in the 43rd Parliament. This motion unanimously, as I said, passed in the House, recognizes the abolition of slavery on August 1st, 1834 in British Empire, but most importantly, it strives to pave a way forward and lay the groundwork toward building an equitable future with equal societal opportunity for all Canadians. However, now that we have achieved recognition of this important occasion, we must look forward and beyond for meaningful action. Thanks to the legacy of advocacy and dedication of Black Canadians, many strides have been made. But there's still much work to be done to ensure an equitable future for all. It is only through unity and collective action that we can work toward this future, whether it's through collaboration between all levels of government or local leaders within communities that they represent. We need to ensure that through education, awareness, advocacy, and allyship, we all come together to eradicate all the practices and remnants of inequality and discrimination. As this day is representation of social activism, justice, and our commitment to an equitable future, we must remember that we come a long way, but we must persist in our important work to ensure equal access to education, economic inclusion, equal participation in society for all Black Canadians. As we move forward, thank you. As we move forward, I want to emphasize that as a Member of Parliament, I, along with our government, are fully committed to combating anti-Black racism and hate in all its forms across Canada. Through initiatives such as our government's anti-racism strategy, we also continue to tackle anti-Black racism in Canada by addressing economic inclusion, advancing justice reform, modernizing policing standards and practices, and enhancing local community support. Recognition is meaningless without action. And this is why our government is making it a priority to develop a whole-of-government action plan to ensure equality before law, eradicate systematic racism, and improve the social, health, and economic well-being of Black Canadians through the implementation of Black Justice Strategy. This work would not be possible without partnership with Black communities. As such, in 2021, we launched Canada's first Black Entrepreneurship Program to support Black Canadian businesses and entrepreneurs as they grow their business to empower them to succeed in the future. Emancipation Day also serves as a crucial and requisite reminder of the work that remains. And I can assure you that through collaboration, education, advocacy, we will make the necessary progress. As we have gathered here today for this beautiful flag-raising ceremony to celebrate moving forward in healing, equity, and fairness, I want to affirm that our responsibility to confront our history and advocate for greater diversity does not end with the Emancipation Day, but it begins with Emancipation Day. We must continue to be an advocate for a more inclusive and diverse society in which Emancipation Day and its history are represented and embodied in our institutions. Together, let's celebrate the strength and determination of the Black communities, the important role they play in strengthening the country we all call home and who we fought for, and continue to fight for freedom, justice, and equality. Today and every day, we must acknowledge the trust of the past and recommit day after day to combating anti-Black hate and systematic racism in order to build a better, more inclusive Canada for all. This is an ongoing journey toward realizing a greater sense of justice, and I encourage everyone to reflect on the contribution of Black Canadians, to learn more about the history of Emancipation Day, and to stand up against racism in all its forms. In closing, I wish all Canadians a day filled with both celebration of the vibrant culture and valued contribution by the Black communities, as well as a day to reflect on our past and our commitment to advancing equality and justice in the present and in the future. Thank you very much.
At this time, we would like to stand and play our Canadian anthem, and stand in honor also of our anthem of the Israelites for the enslaved descendants. Thank you. I would like to welcome Shadrock Porter, MP Jowhari, and Mayor John Tory to come forward as we raise the flag.
Let me get you on this side.
I'm not going to give another speech, but one thing I forgot to do at the end of my remarks was to present this, the official signed proclamation of Emancipation Month, August 2022, to Shadrock and to Doreen, to remember the 400, just as something they can take away and perhaps place in a special place in this movement for this year, and again, we'll have it next year, and the year after, and the year after that. But I want to give this to them now, and we'll then be able to take a photograph with it as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.